Time passed slowly, and by the end of November, Shark Beach had grossed more than $40 million in North America, reaching $40.516 million. The film's box office potential is basically exhausted, but this result is enough to satisfy Universal Pictures and make director Gilbert Jr. attract the attention of the industry. Gilbert Jr. was later interviewed by Sarah, a reporter from the Los Angeles Business Daily, and shared some interesting stories about his upbringing and the love affair with Gwyneth Paltrow, as well as the inside story of the breakup between the two. Of course, all of the above is nonsense. However, Gilbert Jr. revealed the news of his new work in an exclusive interview, which still attracted the attention of fans who began to pay attention to him after Shark Beach. In these years, chatting through the internet is not very mature, and most of them are limited to face-to-face gatherings and discussions. The scale of such a discussion is very small, and it is difficult to form a public opinion upsurge, which cannot be compared with the later self-media era. Moreover, directors in this era are more behind the scenes, and unless they are top directors, they are not concerned by the media and audiences. Relatively speaking, because of Spielberg's care and Gwyneth Paltrow's scandal hype, little Gilbert has received a lot of attention. But this attention did not last, and as the popularity of Shark Beach gradually declined in North America, Gilbert Jr. also faded out of the public eye. In fact, for the industry, Gilbert Jr.'s new work is still worth paying attention to. There is already a successful film, and there is no guarantee that little Gilbert will not succeed a second time. No, as the investor and distributor of Shark Beach, Universal Pictures actively approached Gilbert Jr., and Gilbert Jr., through the negotiation, worked to Sheena Boone. We didn't ask too much, and the director and screenwriter Jr. were paid $1 million, which was converted into an investment in the film, and there was also a 10% box office share. Director Gilbert Jr. also served as the producer of the film, and the final editing was also based on his opinion. In the face of Universal's top management, even Vice President Lou Vasseur, Sheena Boone, a young former CIA agent, still talks eloquently and is not nervous at all. Back in Shark Beach, Gilbert Jr. proved how good he was at editing. So it is only natural to ask for the right to lead the editing this time. But what makes Universal unacceptable is the high salary, as well as the box office share. Miss Boone, we at Universal Pictures are very optimistic about the project. Here comes the Grim Reaper, and we also know what little Gilbert is capable of directing. However, this remuneration and sharing are really a bit high, and it is difficult for us to agree with this, let alone convert the remuneration into an investment. Vice President Lou Vasseur frowned. Ladies and gentlemen, please think about it. The North American box office of Shark Beach has exceeded $40 million. As far as I know, the film has also performed well at the box office overseas and has earned more than $30 million so far. In addition, the film has also landed in major markets around the world, which is far from the end. In other words, this means that Shark Beach is likely to break $100 million at the global box office, and the first directorial work in his career will exceed $100 million. What this represents, you must be very clear. Sheena Boone spat in the Universal Pictures conference room like a passionate orator and spoke out in an attempt to convince Universal Pictures of the value of Gilbert Jr. This trick proved to be very effective, and in the face of ironclad facts, the senior management of Universal Pictures had to take it seriously. It's not that Gilbert Jr.'s past achievements are excellent. After all, only one movie is a big hit, and who knows if it's a flash in the pan. But the previous Shark Beach, coupled with the script of The Grim Reaper submitted this time, was enough for Universal Pictures to value the potential of Gilbert Jr. Lou Vasseur said, "Miss Boone, of course we at Universal Pictures value working with director Gilbert Jr. But when it comes to tens of millions of dollars of investment, we have to be cautious." Sheena Boone retracted her aggressive state and turned into a soft-spoken state in an instant. "Of course I know the rules of operation of Universal Pictures. I just hope everyone understands that Director Gilbert Jr. is looking forward to working with Universal Pictures again. After all, the last time they worked together was so pleasant. It's worth saying whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, but Sheena Boone shows the good qualities of a professional agent. When he speaks loudly for profit, he is unceremonious, like a fierce lioness. When it is time to ease the atmosphere and strive for favor, it can be gentle as water, like a kitten in your arms. In fact, the agent is a bridge between the cast and crew and the film company, which is used to communicate and negotiate without hurting the piece. After all, if little Gilbert had fought for his own interests, he would inevitably have had arguments with the executives of the film company as he did today. In case it is not good, everyone's face will not look good. But with a broker as an intermediary, conflicts between the two parties can be avoided. Friendship is friendship, business is business. Of course, it is inevitable that the broker will take some rake. Gilbert Jr. and Sheena Boone's agent agreement is that Sheena Boone gets a cut of 5 to 8% on each project. This commission is already very low. You must know that CAA, ICM, and other brokerage companies, because of the implementation of packaging services, the commission can even reach 10% to 15%. The negotiation process did not go smoothly, and the two sides were too divided. However, this is only a preliminary contact, and the essence of the negotiation is to open his mouth widely, mention a few conditions that are difficult for the other party to accept, and then talk about the ideal conditions in his heart little by little. When it was over, Lou Vasseur and Levitt Gore, the head of distribution, returned to their offices. "Levitt, do you think we should agree to little Gilbert's terms?" Lou Vasseur asked. Levitt Gore did not answer Lou Vasseur directly, but stated some facts. The script of The Grim Reaper was unanimously approved by the review committee, and the marketing department estimated the film investment and profitability index to be A. He continued, "This script inherits the thriller and horror style of Shark Beach to a certain extent, and the ideas are more daring." Gilbert Jr. proved that he was good at making such films. "That is, there is a high probability of success again?" "That's right," Levitt Gore nodded. "As far as I know, Robert Iger of Touchstone Pictures has been in contact with Gilbert Jr., and Warner and Paramount are very optimistic about him. Although Gilbert Jr. is young, he already has a work to build on. Based on Hollywood's past experience, Gilbert Jr. is in a period of rapid ascension, and the potential of directors in the rising period is huge, which you must also know." "Yes," Lou Vasseur sighed. "I can't guarantee that little Gilbert won't be another Spielberg in the future. Of course, the current little Gilbert can't be compared with Spielberg, but he can't stand up to the youth. Spielberg was 29 years old when he made Jaws, but what about Gilbert Jr.? Before the new year, he was only 21 years old. The lifespan of the profession of director is very long, and little Gilbert has no problem working until he is 70 or 80 years old. I don't dare to imagine what my 50 or 60-year career can become. But in any case, even if Gilbert Jr. has potential, it is a matter of the future. There's no shortage of Hollywood things that make you famous overnight and then disappear from the crowd, so Gilbert Jr.'s outrageous request Universal Pictures won't agree. With Universal Pictures, Sheena Boone arrives at Muskmelon Studios in Burbank. At present, it is impossible for Universal Pictures to agree to our request. I think they will make appropriate concessions in terms of salary, and they will not agree to investment and sharing. Through a negotiation, Sheena Boone roughly understood Universal's bottom line. Little Gilbert said with pity, "It seems that it is impossible to go in and get a piece of the pie." Indeed, Sheena Boone nodded. but Universal Pictures is very optimistic about your new project, and I think investment shouldn't be a problem. So, Gilbert Jr. said to Sheena Boone with a regular tapping of his fingers, and we can reach out to other studios, and Universal Pictures is not the only option. Sheena Boone understood. Okay, I'll be in touch with other studios. Burbank is known as the media capital and the influential Time magazine in North America, and the world is located here, and the headquarters of the Los Angeles Times, one of the 3 largest newspapers in the country. Of course, it's also home to the headquarters of many Hollywood companies, including the famous Warner Pictures. At this moment, Warner Pictures CEO Jeff Robinoff is chatting with Doug Walter, the head of distribution, about Gilbert Jr.'s new project. According to the latest news, the box office of Shark Beach has reached more than $40 million in North America and more than $30 million overseas, and it is still rising, and the final box office is likely to exceed $100 million. Gilbert Jr. has officially submitted the script for his new film to Universal Pictures, and according to our sources, Universal is very optimistic about the project internally. Doug Walter mysteriously briefed Jeff Robinoff on the situation, which made Jeff Robinoff frown. Do you think it's possible for us to snatch this project from Universal Pictures? Jeff Robinoff asked. It's hard to say. Doug Walter wasn't sure. I heard that the first negotiations, Universal Pictures and Gilbert Jr.'s agent broke up. Maybe this is an opportunity. Well, Jeff Robinoff decided, we are actively in contact with little Gilbert for the opportunity to cooperate. The same thing happened between Robert Iger and Michael Eisner. Touchstone Pictures is a wholly owned subsidiary of Walt Disney and is responsible for the live-action film business, which Walt Disney is not good at. We learned from the Screenwriters Guild that Gilbert Jr. has several scripts on file with the Screenwriters Guild, and this is a director who is in the prime of his creative career. Robert Iger briefing Michael Eisner. He added, Gilbert Jr. has a lot of potential, and we have assessed that the chances of his next film failing are very small. Michael Eisner also made a decision. Contact Gilbert Jr. first. Our live-action film business lacks people to carry the top. As long as little Gilbert can come, any conditions can be discussed. I understand. I'll talk to him right away. Robert Iger agreed. A similar situation has occurred with film studios such as Paramount, MGM, Sony Columbia, and 20th Century Fox. However, except for Touchstone Pictures and Warner Pictures, which really want to snatch Gilbert Jr.'s project, other film companies just have the idea of having fish and not catching 2 nets to join in the fun. However, row is like this, and it still makes Universal Pictures like a big enemy, and Universal Pictures still attaches great importance to the cooperation with Gilbert Jr. Soon, at the urging of Universal Pictures, Sheena Boone negotiated with Universal Pictures for the second time. Miss Boone, we are looking forward to working with Gilbert Jr. again, and the salary can go up to $1.2 million, but the investment and sharing are conditions that we cannot accept. Levitt Gore said. Gentlemen, Sheena Boone's eyes widened in disbelief. For a director whose film is about to sell more than $100 million at the global box office, your conditions are outrageous. I ask gentlemen to think about how much Universal Pictures made on this project. Tens of millions of dollars, right? And now, they are only willing to pay $1.2 million? At the end, Sheena Boone raised her voice, looking angry. At this time, Lou Vassell soothed. Miss Boone, please calm down. After Sheena Boone sat down, Lou Vasseur continued. At the end of the day, Gilbert Jr. has potential, but he only has this one piece to prove himself. We at Universal Pictures also took the risk of failure and chose to continue to believe in director Gilbert Jr. Please also trust us to lay the foundation for better cooperation in the future. The subtext of Lou Vasseur is that now Gilbert Jr. is not qualified to participate in the share or want to invest. Sheena Boone, of course, knew that she was not qualified, but she was just asking for a sky-high price. According to Sheena Boone's ideal situation, the best salary is $1.5 million, and it would be better if she could have a share. As a result, the second negotiation broke up again unhappily, and the two sides failed to reach an agreement. After that, Levasseur and Levitt Gore continued their discussion. Levitt Gore's suggestion is, "I think it's better to put the negotiations on hold and let them dry for a while." However, other companies seem to be reaching out to Gilbert Jr., so what if Gilbert Jr. works with them? Levasseur: "Don't worry, we're going to reveal a little bit about Gilbert Jr.'s conditions, and I don't think any other company will agree to Gilbert Jr.'s outrageous request." Levitt Gore is confident. Levasseur made sense. Well, that's it. It should be said that Levitt Gore's proposal is a good plan, and if the negotiations are deadlocked, then put it on hold for a while. Little Gilbert is not Spielberg, and it is he who should be anxious now. However, the two never expected that a film company would really agree to Gilbert Jr.'s conditions, so that Universal Pictures had no time to react. At the invitation of Robert Iger, Little Gilbert was a guest at Robert Iger's luxurious villa. At this time, a small party is going on here, and it can be said that this party is for Little Gilbert. Lacking a female companion, Little Gilbert remembered Cameron Diaz, so he invited Cameron Diaz to go with him. Cameron Diaz, who received the invitation, was pleasantly surprised. She specially rented a dress, waited for Little Gilbert to pick her up, and the two went to Robert Iger's luxury villa together. "Wow, Michelle, you look so beautiful today." Little Gilbert looked at Cameron Diaz, who was wearing a little blue dress, and exclaimed. Michelle is Cameron Diaz's middle name, Cameron Michelle Diaz. Cameron Diaz appropriately shows shyness. "Really? Thank you for the compliments." Looking at Little Gilbert's fascinated appearance, Cameron Diaz knew that this dress was chosen correctly, and it was really attractive to men. It was still a bit chilly in Los Angeles in December, and Gilbert Jr. took off his suit and draped it over Cameron Diaz. "It's still a little cold at night. Be careful of freezing," Gilbert Jr. said. Looking at the man in front of her who would care about women, Cameron Diaz admitted that for a moment she was a little moved. "Please, ma'am, please fasten your seatbelt." Little Gilbert opened the car door. Cameron Diaz smiled wryly. "Yes, gentlemen." After saying that, he sat in the passenger seat and tucked his slender legs in. Little Gilbert closed the passenger door, turned to the other side, and drove the car towards Robert Iger's estate. Robert Iger's luxury villa is located in Malibu, where many wealthy people have bought real estate. However, Little Gilbert could not afford to buy a house here for the time being, and he still lived in the same apartment he used to live in, and occasionally went back to live with the old man. By the time Little Gilbert arrived, Robert Iger was already waiting outside the door, looking sincere. "Hello, little Director Gilbert, see you again." Robert Iger came up with a very warm hug. This enthusiasm made Little Gilbert very uncomfortable, but fortunately Robert Iger just hugged him. "Long time no see, Bob. You still look very energetic." Little Gilbert also complimented. "Who is this?" It was only then that Robert Iger noticed Cameron Diaz wearing a Little Gilbert suit next to him. Gilbert Jr. took the initiative to introduce both parties. "Bob, this is Cameron Diaz, my friend, coming to Los Angeles to be an actor. Michelle, this is Robert Iger, CEO of Touchstone Pictures." "Hello, beautiful lady. Welcome to tonight's party." Robert Iger gave a kiss. Cameron Diaz was delighted. "It's an honor to be here." Robert Iger led the two into the villa, and there were many people in the villa at this time. Basically, all of them were middle and senior managers of Walt Disney. When I saw Little Gilbert, everyone had a professional smile on their faces and looked very enthusiastic. After a while, Robert Iger and little Gilbert found a small room to talk about things. Gilbert Jr. said to Cameron Diaz, who was with him, "Go ahead, Bob, and I have something to talk about." Cameron Diaz nodded and prepared to socialize in the lobby. "Wait." Gilbert Jr. called Cameron Diaz again. "Huh." Cameron Diaz looked back in confusion. "Don't drink. Go back and drive," Gilbert Jr. said. Cameron Diaz nodded in understanding. After Cameron Diaz went out, Gilbert Jr. sat down with Robert Iger to talk. "Little Gilbert, we at Disney are no weaker than Universal Pictures in terms of film distribution. And we at Disney are not strong in the live-action film business. As long as you come to us, you are the number one." Robert Iger's rhetoric is tempting. What is the top card? I thought it was sold in a brothel. Little Gilbert complained inwardly. However, little Gilbert still said with a smile on his face, "I guess you have also heard that there are rumors of my harsh conditions outside. Can Disney agree to these?" "Don't worry," said Robert Iger. "Mr. Eisner has said that he can talk on any condition. If you are willing to agree." It is easy to say. The two touched a glass, which can be regarded as a tacit understanding, and let the agent negotiate with the film company for the rest. "By the way, do you want to give Michelle a role?" Robert Iger asked. After getting acquainted, Robert Iger also called Cameron Diaz's middle name. "It depends. If she doesn't meet my requirements, she won't be allowed to appear in the film." Robert Iger was relieved, which showed that little Gilbert was a principled person who would not influence his judgment because of extra things or women. A small party ended, and both parties got what they wanted. After seeing off Gilbert Jr. and Cameron Diaz, Robert Iger returned to his study to call Michael Eisner. "Hey, Michael, it's settled." Michael Eisner on the other end of the line said, "Hopefully, he won't let us down." "Definitely not. You can rest assured." Robert Iger was so sure that Gilbert Jr. would succeed again. The car drove downstairs to Cameron Diaz's apartment, and Cameron Diaz issued an invitation. "Do you want to go up and have a cup of coffee?" "Okay." Little Gilbert didn't drink much, but it wasn't fit to drive back, so he simply agreed. "Follow Cameron Diaz up. There is no elevator. Only take the stairs." Watching Cameron Diaz walk in front, little Gilbert had to admit that the future Hollywood sweetheart may not have the most beautiful face, but the figure is good enough. Entering Cameron Diaz's apartment, the woman changed the dress, which was rented after all, and had to be returned. Then I wore a homely outfit, which looked more close-fitting. Still instant coffee. Maybe the party didn't drink. Cameron Diaz poured himself a glass of red wine and sat by the window with little Gilbert to chat. "Are you going to work with Disney?" Cameron Diaz asked. "Well, they basically agreed to my terms, and the rest is just the details." Little Gilbert drank instant coffee and wondered when he would get some tea from his hometown to drink. He loved to drink tea in his previous life, and he grew up drinking tea. In fact, there is also a production area of coffee beans in my hometown, but it is always not as famous as tea. Cameron Diaz looked at little Gilbert with hope on his face, a little hesitant, wanting to speak but not daring. Seeing this, little Gilbert didn't know what the girl in front of him was thinking. However, he still asked, "Let you sign up for the acting class. Have you signed up?" "Uh-huh." Cameron Diaz nodded seriously. "I have gone to acting classes." Knowing Cameron Diaz's later trajectory, it would be quite interesting to be the sweetheart of future Hollywood, and little Gilbert thought about giving her a chance. It just so happens that this project also needs handsome men and beautiful women. Well, you ask your agent to submit your resume and participate in the audition, and if it meets my requirements, I will give you priority," Gilbert Jr. said. Cameron Diaz was overjoyed, nodded like a chicken pecking rice, and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely work hard." The two talked about something else, and little Gilbert himself had a good sense of humor, which made Cameron Diaz laugh. "It's almost time. and it's time for me to go. Little Gilbert looked at his watch, and it was almost time to go back. Cameron Diaz then stood up and persuaded, I'm drinking. I can't go back, so it's better to sleep here for one night. Little Gilbert looked at Cameron Diaz's face, drank a little wine, and there was a flush on his cheeks, which looked charming. With big watery eyes and a beautiful posture, I believe that no man can resist this scene. The two got closer and closer, eventually leaning together. Cameron Diaz, who is 1.75 meters tall and does not wear high heels, looks like a bird in front of the 1.85-meter-tall Little Gilbert. Hey, Michelle, you're so charming. Little Gilbert hugged Cameron Diaz's soft waist. Cameron Diaz's long eyelashes curled up, just like what was written in Jay Chou's song, winking at Little Gilbert, as if taking a photo. Neither of them was a novice, and the two exchanged a wave of air, panting. Then the two couldn't wait to practice yoga together, and a 30,000-word incident happened. Practicing yoga is tiring and prone to sweating. After a workout, Cameron Diaz collapsed on top of Little Gilbert, speaking in a voice that looked content and tired. It's good, Little Gilbert, you're a yoga master. Little Gilbert was very innocent. My dear, what you say is unreasonable. Obviously your yoga skills are too rich. Cameron Diaz listened happily and whispered in Little Gilbert's ear, Let's do it again, okay? Okay. Such a good thing, of course. Little Gilbert would not refuse. That night, the two of them had another 60,000-word yoga activity, and the exercise tracks were all over the bathroom, by the window, and on the table. Go to Ushan together and become one. A night of exercise refreshes Little Gilbert. He turned around and informed his agent, Sheena Boone, and put her in touch with Touchstone Pictures, and the two sides began negotiations. Within a few days, news came from Sheena Boone that negotiations with Touchstone Pictures were going well. Robert Iger basically agreed to the $10 million investment in The Grim Reaper and also agreed to convert Gilbert Jr.'s salary into an investment. Correspondingly, the salary will be lower, and the salary of the director, screenwriter, and producer is only $1 million. All of them are converted into film investment, accounting for 10% of the investment share. Even so, this is much higher than the original salary of $100,000. At the same time, in terms of box office sharing, a step-by-step sharing strategy was adopted, starting with the box office of $50 million. If the North American box office does not reach $50 million, it is naturally not eligible to participate in the share. Of course, the share amount is not high, only 5%, and it is a box office profit share, not a total box office share. Similarly, Gilbert Jr. is not eligible for a share of the overseas box office and can only share the account according to the proportion of investment. However, being able to get this generous condition has exceeded Gilbert Jr.'s expectations, and after the details were finalized, he officially signed his name on the director's contract. When the news reached Universal Pictures, Lou Vasseur was half angry, and then he was called to the office by President Akio Tani and reprimanded. Listen to me, Mr. Tani, Lou Vasseur quibbled. Disney agreed to Gilbert Jr. because the live-action film business was in dire need of expansion. Look, Disney will regret today's decision. Akio Tani glanced at Lou Vasseur deeply. I hope what you said is right, Lou, or the board of directors will go and explain. You can rest assured, I have been in the industry for many years, and I will not make mistakes in judgment. It's better to be like this. Out of the president's office, Lou Vasseur scolded Robert Iger more than a dozen times in his heart. It was he who broke the rules of the game. Lou Vasseur didn't blame Little Gilbert, after all. Who has good conditions and who to work with? This is the law of Hollywood. No one is to blame. Although I don't know the conditions of Touchstone Pictures, the conditions must be much more generous than those of Universal Pictures. On the other hand, Warner Pictures regretted not getting in touch earlier, otherwise the project would have been Warner's. However, Jeff Robinoff also comforted Doug Walter. "It's okay, Doug. We can watch it again." If Gilbert Jr. proves himself again, it means that he really has a promising future, and at that time, we at Warner Pictures will definitely try to reach a cooperation with him. Doug Walter nodded regretfully. That's all it can be. At this time, Gilbert Jr., who caused a discussion among the top executives of the film company, was interviewing his assistant. "You said you worked as an assistant to a Chanel designer?" Looking at the girl in front of him, little Gilbert was a little surprised. "Yes," Anna Singh nodded, "and when I realized I couldn't achieve anything in the fashion industry, I went back to Los Angeles." Anna Singh was recommended by her little aunt, Meryl Clay, and is the daughter of her colleague. Graduated from a prestigious school and has work experience, he is a good candidate for assistant. After looking at her resume and looking at it, Gilbert Jr. hired her as an assistant. "Your main job now is to assist my agent Sheena Boone, who is responsible for building the crew with Touchstone Pictures and will communicate with me whenever there is news." "Okay," the female assistant understood. "I see." After finding an assistant, Gilbert Jr. contacted Durr Randolph, the cinematographer who had worked on Shark Beach. "Durr, have you been alive lately?" "No. I recently shot a few commercials for advertising agencies, and I can barely support my family." "Durr Loglandoff Loged. Would you like to continue working with me?" Little Gilbert didn't grind and went straight to the point. Durr Randolph has long been optimistic about the potential of Gilbert Jr., and working with such a promising director for the future is also a huge career opportunity. Without much hesitation, Durr Randolph immediately agreed. "Yes, that's what I wanted." "Then we're happy to work together." "It's a pleasure to work with." After getting the photographer, little Gilbert also needs other reliable people. The composition of a crew is very complex. The director team, the production team, the camera team, visual effects and props, lighting, art, action stunts, and so on. Little Gilbert doesn't mean that he wants to recruit so many people. As long as the core department is his own people, he can control the entire crew. After Durr Randolph joined the gang, Spielberg recommended Ann Burton to be Gilbert Jr.'s assistant director. Ann Burton is also a graduate of USC, and she is Gilbert Jr.'s senior sister, and she has the qualifications and abilities, and Gilbert Jr. gladly accepts it. Then Francis Coppola recommended Serena Hayfay, who is also an excellent art director. For the rest, Gilbert Jr. will also take care of his agent, and the priority is to use the candidates recommended by Sheena Boone. Although we have talked about cooperation with Touchstone Pictures, this project is after the new year. Before the old man came back from his trip to Europe, little Gilbert went to San Francisco to spend Christmas with his aunt's family. "Here, try this, I'll do it." Little Gilbert served a dish. Cousin Elle asked in surprise, "Wow, cousin, what is this delicious?" "This is a Chinese delicacy I made, called spicy chicken, try it." Little Gilbert rubbed his hands. Elle picked up her fork, struggled to fork a piece of chicken, and tasted it. "How?" Little Gilbert asked expectantly. "It's a little spicy, but it's still delicious." Elle thought it tasted good, so she just took the spoon and dug it and put it on her plate. "Little aunt, you can taste it too." Little Gilbert was happy when he heard this. The little Aunt Meryl was curious. "Little Gilbert, when did you learn to cook Chinese food?" Little Gilbert casually said, "When I was in college, I joined a food club, and there were classmates from China who studied with him." "Oh." The little aunt didn't doubt him. She also tasted it and immediately nodded. "Well, it tastes really good, delicious. It's not the most authentic. You can't buy chili peppers from China here, and when you have time to travel to China, you can eat the most authentic Chinese food," Gilbert Jr. said. Okay, good. My cousin clapped her hands and said, My cousin told me about the Forbidden City, the Great Wall, Dianchi Lake, and Shangri-La. I want to go and see it. Okay, little Gilbert agreed. As long as your academic performance meets your mother's requirements next semester, my cousin will take you there. Really? Of course it's true. My mother will be a witness. You have to work hard. Aunt Merrill agreed. After eating turkey and tasting diced spicy chicken, little Gilbert guarded the phone, calling familiar people one by one to contact the situation. Necessary greetings on holidays are a must, whether it is a collaborator, an elder, or a subordinate partner. The last call was to Cameron Diaz. Hey, Michelle. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Little Gilbert, have you eaten turkey? Of course. Our turkey is the biggest. Nonsense. Our turkey is the biggest. After the two flirted, Cameron Diaz asked again, When are you going back to Los Angeles? I miss you. Really, do you miss me, or do you miss my body? Little Gilbert teased. I want to, Cameron Diaz said in a mysterious tone, fingering his plump lips with his fingers, and when we get back to Los Angeles, we'll try some new tricks. Ha ha ha, then I'm really looking forward to what tricks you'll have. Don't worry, I promise you like it very much. I learned it in the island country. Little Gilbert's tone was sluggish. Learned from the island country? Little days are so perverted. What did Cameron Diaz learn? I don't understand. What should I do if I'm looking forward to it? New Year, it entered 1992, and Shark Beach has ended its theatrical journey in North America with a total of $41.279 million at the box office. This result ranked behind MGM's Crazy Flowers of the End, ranking 29th in the North American box office list in 1991. Similarly, Shark Beach has also ended its overseas theater journey one after another. The film won $64.5 million overseas, and with the North American box office, the global box office came to $105 million. The first movie of Gilbert Jr.'s career, the global box office exceeded $100 million, shocking the industry, and also making the name Gilbert Jr. frequently mentioned again more than a month later. Although the media paid less attention to him and more attention to Gwyneth Paltrow, many studios began to reassess Gilbert Jr.'s potential. In short, not to mention becoming hot, but at the very least, little Gilbert is not in a situation where no one cares about it now. Universal Pictures is also the envy of other studios because the investment in Shark Beach is only $3.5 million and the total amount of publicity and distribution costs is not more than $8 million. $8 million in exchange for a global box office of $105 million. No matter how you look at Universal Pictures, it has made a lot of money. As everyone knows, Universal Pictures also has a hard time because the director who created this miracle will not cooperate with Universal Pictures in the next movie. And Robert Iger of Touchstone Pictures laughed and bragged about his brilliant record of poaching Gilbert Jr. from Universal Pictures. Of course, the most important job of Touchstone Pictures at the moment is to urge little Gilbert to start the production of The Grim Reaper as soon as possible. After the new year, Gilbert Jr. returned to Los Angeles and officially began to prepare for The Grim Reaper. Touchstone Pictures uses a third-party system, which is actually a common routine used by many Hollywoods, setting up a studio-related film with separate accounts. Many popular movies can have studios that can exist for years, or even more than a decade. At the prep meeting, Gilbert Jr. discussed with Kane Waxman, producer of Touchstone Pictures. In terms of actors, I think it's enough to have a small audition. Alex, I recommend Matt Damon, and Claire, I recommend Cameron Diaz. Little Gilbert suggested. Kane Weckersman agreed. Yes, Gilbert Jr., as long as they can audition. The producers agreed, And the problem was not a big deal, and soon Touchstone Pictures audition invitations were sent to Matt Damon and Cameron Diaz's agents. Matt Damon signed with Sheena Boone early on, but his good friend Ben Affleck signed with CAA. At first, Ben Affleck was puzzled by Matt Damon's signing of Sheena Boone. No matter how he looked at Sheena Boone, he couldn't compare to the powerful CAA. But Matt Damon explained with a smile, "I believe in Sheena and director Gilbert Jr. A director who is about the same age as us, maybe short-lived. Why do you believe him?" Ben Affleck was still puzzled. Matt Damon pointed to his head and said, "It's intuition. Ben, I think director Gilbert Jr. is the one who does big things." It's not clear whether it's a big deal. Anyway, the script for Little Gilbert's Death is Coming was given to him early on. This is the latest work of the director, whose first work has a box office of over 100 million, and it is the male lead, which is much better than playing soy sauce in CAA. Said that it was an audition, but in fact, it had already been decided, and as long as the performance was not bad, basically no one else would be considered. Therefore, Matt Damon and Cameron Diaz respectively auditioned to become actors on the crew of Here Comes the Grim Reaper. Cameron Diaz's excited heart and trembling hands signed the actor's contract. Although the salary is only $100,000 and it is only given for the sake of Little Gilbert's face, this is the female number one. If like Gwyneth Paltrow, who starred in Gilbert Jr.'s first film, Cameron Diaz believes he will become the new American sweetheart. Matt Damon is also happy, and he is paid a little more, with $150,000. After signing the actor's contract, Matt Damon and Little Gilbert hugged. "Thank you, Little Gilbert." "Don't be so polite, Matt. If it weren't for your excellent performance in the audition session, I wouldn't have been able to convince Touchstone Pictures to let you play the leading role," Gilbert Jr. said. Matt Damon assured, "Don't worry, I'll do well." "Okay, let's go have a drink later." "No," Matt Damon pointed out the door. "There's a beautiful woman waiting for you outside the door." Little Gilbert looked out the door. It was Cameron Diaz, and had to say to Matt Damon, "Then we can go to the bar together, when we have time." "No problem, I'm always waiting for your call." Matt Damon gestured to make a call. Little Gilbert walked out the door. Cameron Diaz naturally grabbed Little Gilbert's arm, and the two walked out. "Thank you, Little Gilbert, for giving me this opportunity." As he walked out, Cameron Diaz thanked him. "You're welcome, Michelle. I've always taken good care of my own people," Gilbert Jr. said. Cameron Diaz smiled smartly. "People like you must be very pleasing to girls." Little Gilbert gently patted Cameron Diaz's arm and encouraged, "The most important thing at the moment is to make this movie. You have to work hard." "Uh-huh." Cameron Diaz nodded effortfully. "I'll try." On the way back to Drive Cameron Diaz practiced his banana eating skills directly in the car. After returning to Cameron Diaz's apartment, since Little Gilbert opened the back door for her, Cameron Diaz also let Little Gilbert go through the back door. Young men and women are always happy in this kind of thing, and Europeans and Americans, who are more open-minded, obviously have more fun than the country in the East. Of course, in terms of tricks, no one can compare to the perverts on that bug in the Pacific. Cameron Diaz, who studied in Little Day, obviously knows this well, which makes Little Gilbert wonder if Cameron Diaz has worked as an actor in Little Day's custom industry. Of course, Cameron Diaz didn't say it, and Gilbert Jr. didn't ask in detail. The preparation process of the film was quite smooth, and Little Gilbert also spent the Spring Festival of 1992 in his busy process, which was also the year he was born in his previous life. I just don't know if there will be another self-born now, following his own trajectory, and then crossing over. But Little Gilbert basically doesn't think about such a headache. It's useless to think too much, and it's easy to fall into a strange circle. But the spring festival was still over, and in Cameron Diaz's apartment, little Gilbert made a dumpling meal with her. In his previous life, little Gilbert was a native of the Northeast, and the Northeast people had the habit of celebrating the New Year, killing pigs, making dumplings, and sitting on the Kong to brag about it. Although you can't make a pig-killing dish, you can still wrap dumplings. Eating this pastry from across the Pacific Ocean, Cameron Diaz commented, "It tastes weird, and it tastes even stranger with this apple cider vinegar. But after getting used to it, it still feels good." Little Gilbert smiled and introduced, "This is a delicacy from across the Pacific Ocean, called dumplings. Generally, it is better to eat with local vinegar, and apple cider vinegar is really not suitable for eating this." The dumplings were said in Chinese, and Cameron Diaz read them along, but the big tongue was not standard. "Isn't there a sale in Chinatown? Why should you get your hands dirty?" Cameron Diaz was puzzled. Little Gilbert reminisced, "This is what an old man taught me, that cooking is actually just as much fun as making movies. If I hadn't been making movies, I would have been a chef." "That's better to make a movie," Cameron Diaz said, holding little Gilbert's hand. "As for food, I'm always available as your customer." Cameron Diaz thinks it's good to develop a relationship with little Gilbert, be a boyfriend and girlfriend, and take what they want. But at the moment, it seems that Gilbert Jr. has no further ideas and is limited to his body and work. After China's Spring Festival and Valentine's Day, the crew of Death is Coming was ready, and the film officially began filming at Disney's own studio.